Earthbound, the West's first introduction to Shigesato Itoi's Dream. Anyone even remotely familiar with the series found it either because of this game or Smash Brothers. Truth be told, this is my first time ever completing Earthbound. It houses so many moments that leave you thinking, how the hell did that even happen? It breaks conventional gaming rules so much that in theory, there should be no way for the player to feel immersed in such a world. It begins with you questioning its strange identity, but after a while, you oddly begin to understand it on a more personal level. To put it bluntly, you start to relate to a game that has a pile of vomit as a recurring boss. Yeah, get ready. This is gonna be quite the episode. Earthbound? Let's talk about it. Earthbound is a game that is truly unlike that of any other. You more than likely know a lot of its secrets and tricks, but it's such an incredibly unique experience that I have to give my own thoughts on it. You may notice that my approach to this episode is a bit more calming than usual, and that's because for the type of topics that Earthbound delves into, my usual over-cheery commentary would feel just a smidge out of place. Anyways, guys, Mr. Copy here guides you to the back room of the station where he and 5 other corrupt officers commit police brutality on a 12-year-old. Blue, blue, you can't be happy unless you know happyism. I mean, considering the game that we're talking about, maybe that glaring contrast in tone would be appropriate. Well, let's at least try to take it down a notch for this episode, shall we? The beginning of the game may feel familiar if you've played the first entry, which means in 1994, this was a totally original game opening. Mysterious noises, magical abnormalities, it's all back, baby. Just when you thought the world was cleansed of all evil, it's about to creep back out again. Earthbound does include a few more intriguing details here, however, namely the crash of a meteorite and a time-traveling fly. A true Marty McFly, you might say. We also get reintroduced to our protagonist, Ness! Yeah, Ness! Our brand new main character for the series, Ness! Yeah, come on, you know Ness! No, seriously, is that not just 16-bit Nintendo? If you didn't know any better, you could have very well assumed Earthbound to be a spiritual successor to Mother 1. Not a direct remake per se, but a game that carries the ambitions and philosophies over and portrays them in a greater light. The best comparison I can make is the relationship between Xenogears and Xenoblade Chronicles. These two series share similar plot points, character archetypes, and creative directions, but are both set in different universes with minute contrasts to make them stand apart. At first, this seems to be the case here too. I mean, when's the last time you heard this game get called Mother 2? Mother 1 opened with inanimate objects attacking the player and lighting them on the great peril of the world, indirectly kickstarting Nintendo's adventure. Earthbound paints the exact same picture, in about triple the amount of time. The similarities don't stop there, however. Both of the main characters love baseball, are foreshadowed about a girl with mystical powers, must record 8 melodies, learn a unique PSI representing their favorite thing, team up with a nerdy boy, fight Starman, the list goes on. Alright, but if this was truly a successor to Mother 1, let's just see how tough the first enemy is. Huh. Traded the smokes in for some shades, huh? Oh, God. This is a Mother game, alright. I had 3 people in my freaking party! How the hell did I lose the very first fight? Okay, you know what? Although these two games are eerily similar in many aspects, Earthbound does more than fit the bill for a sequel. There are dozens of unique story events here that aren't part of the Mother 1 experience. Going through a man-made man dungeon who joins your party upon completion. Teaming up with a bubblegum-blowing monkey to find the Loch Ness monster, Tessie. And experiencing the unique cultures of all the different races that inhabit Eagle Land. This is all well and good, and should truly qualify this game to be the greatest Mother 2 we could have ever received. But there's one area that defies this statement. This is the land of Magicant, As I've said before, I love this area. If anything, it being present here all but confirms that the continuation of Mother 1's story is at hand. Ironically, it proves the exact opposite. The Magicant we see here is not the mystical and creative haven we openly explored in the previous title. This is a representation of Ness's mind. His collective thoughts and memories, they're all given life inside of his head. Queen Mary is nowhere to be seen, and to me signifies that Earthbound cannot be set in the same world as the first game. Comparatively, these two areas are way too distinct to both be classified as Magicant. Now I know there are still ways you could connect the two entries together. Magicant could technically be defined as a place that exists in everyone's mind in the Mother universe, and that's why the Queens and Ness both share different versions of this magical land. Personally, I think both narratives are enjoyed more when taken as standalone journeys. I like to think of Mother 1 as the prototype to this grandiose adventure, or that Earthbound acts as a soft reboot, hence the name change. Plus, the final boss's name has been slightly altered, even though it's meant to be the same entity. Instead of Gigu, now our dastardly evil little baby alien antagonist is called Gaiga. Combat has been significantly revamped for Earthbound. With the upgraded hardware of the SNES and the fact that Mother 1 had no charm presented in its battles, how does its sequel fare in this regard? Well, let's engage a battle with this new age retro hippie for a direct comparison. Here is Mother 1. And here is Mother 2. Oh yeah, Johnny is being good tonight. Before I dissect the battling system, can I just say the music is so freaking sweet? I literally could not stop listening to it since I first laid ears on it. The OST is unbelievably soothing. It kind of puts you in a zen-like state, but then there are also so many pure bangers here. I'm genuinely upset I can't include them all in this video. Take funky vibes, blend it with classic rock and a dash of groovy pop. What do you get? Probably a flat apple smoothie. Oh, and the Earthbound soundtrack! Seriously, I know everyone memes on Sanctuary Guardian like, ho ho, haha, funny meme. But it's surprisingly fitting boss music. Come on, what else would you want to hear when fighting this, or this, or this? I mean, I know Itoi was inspired by John Lennon, but are we sure the Beatles didn't make the damn soundtrack? Oh, a lot of songs actually use samples from famous Beatles tracks. And John died 14 years prior, so it's basically impossible for them to have composed it, huh? Yeah. Well, even in its ambient settings, Earthbound's sound direction was so ahead of its time. Caves that echo these strange noises of the creatures that dwell inside, to these unsettling, whirling drones, reminds me of police cars off in the distance, racing through the streets on a dark, rainy night. Ugh, it's chilling to think of, but sometimes the happy side of Earthbound is portrayed just as well as its creepier sections. I mean, next you're gonna be telling me these frightening songs are based on the Beach Boys or something like that. In the last video, I talked at length about how the battling system doesn't truly reflect the appeal of the Mother series. For a game full of quirky and witty characters, how can the combat feel so bland? Well, Earthbound fixes this in many ways, the most obvious being the background. Something so simple that has no effect on gameplay yet makes battling feel so much more intuitive. Unleashing PSI attacks fills the screen with dazzling flare, coupled with the harmonious sound effects. I just freaking love it! Your overall options in combat are expanded upon greatly here. So why don't we meet our colorful and competent cast who'll be stomping our foes, shall we? Ness, the leader, the captain, the ace of the baseball team. or in this case, his party of friends. Although silent, he does exude a stronger personality than our previous protag, though that really isn't saying much. We explore his mind through the land of Magicant, where he must learn to overcome his inner demons by defeating the manifestation of his nightmares. In battle, he's an all-rounder, a jack of all trades. He possesses healing PSI, a high health bar, and impressive damage output. When it comes to utility, I cannot stress enough about his usefulness. Paula, the romantic love interest and Ness's partner in crime. Wink, wink. Her offensive PSI abilities are astounding. PK Freeze is a single targeting yet devastatingly powerful attack. PK Fire is a multi-hitting move that hits all enemies in either the front or back row, and PK Thunder is an inaccurate, random thunder shock that makes a huge impact when it does land. She doesn't sport any healing arts, and is incredibly frail to compensate. Nowhere near as broken as Anna from Mother 1, but honestly, that's a good thing in this case. Jeff, the nerdy rocket boy of the group. While he follows Lloyd's footsteps in using one-time consumables, they're much more plentiful this time around. When resting with a broken item in their inventory, Ness and Paula will usually wake up to the sight of Jeff messing around with, I don't know, a freaking laser! In the later half of the game, when money isn't an issue, Jeff skyrockets as an MVP of the team. How about an unlimited supply of super bombs and multi-bottle rockets that crush even the most difficult enemies in the game? Yeah, safe to say, this is a scientifically significant upgrade to the previous Boy Genius. Get ready, because the trio is about to become a quartet! Brace yourselves for the newly crowned Prince of Dalam, Pooh. You heard that right. Pooh. Poop. Feces. Dung. Crap. Shit. Pooh. Or as I renamed him, Pooh! So now everyone who mentions him is shouting an absurdity! In all seriousness, or as serious as I can get with a name like that, Pooh is amazing! He can't equip any items, but to make up for that glaring downside, his level ups are out of this world! Speaking of out of this world, he is capable of learning the most powerful magic spell in the entire game, PK Starstorm, an almighty explosion that completely obliterates all foes on the field. And if it doesn't finish the enemy off, well, you can bet they won't be able to see or hear anything for a while, so kick them while they're down! Each member is given a small development arc at some point throughout the adventure, which although minor, really helps flesh out their character in ways you wouldn't expect. I've briefly touched upon Ness's fever dream, but the others share similar troubling moments. Paula's dad never even noticed she was kidnapped, and her mother doesn't seem to care. Was she possibly neglected as a child? Jeff breaks out of his boarding school and works so tirelessly throughout the whole game just to gain a bit of attention from his father, a world-famous scientist. Then there's Prince Pooh, who has his limbs, ears, eyes, basically everything torn off him with a spirit communicated through his mind? It's a really weird scene, but that's just how Earthbound is. It's really freaking weird, but there's nothing wrong with that. Every character is found through a unique, bizarre situation. Being saved as a blue cultist sacrifice, escaping the chilly winter of education, and again, I don't really know what happened to Pooh, but it just happens, and that's okay. It ultimately leads to the formation of a stronger group of friends at the end of the day. And the payoff? Oh yeah, it's totally worth it. When they all band together to fight this demonic tent, they are more than ready to face it head on! Earthbound is a game that takes its time, and a statement like that is still underselling it. Don't let that paint it in a negative light, it's not necessarily a bad thing. Every time I booted up the game, I would only play it for as long as I could stand it. Whether that was 5 hours or 5 minutes, my approach to the game was, I'll play it when I feel like it. As a result, I came to appreciate it more. The deliberately slow pacing is actually a brilliant design choice, as it truly lets you indulge in the finer luxuries of the world. Every time I beat a Sanctuary Guardian, the music coupled with the peaceful monument truly allowed me to take in this wonderful sight. Just relax. The fight is over, and we won. Now take this reward as your own, and continue when you're ready. If this was Mother 1, I probably would have just ran up to the shrine, flicked through the text box, and went on my merry way. But in Earthbound, it's not that you can't do this, it's more so, you don't want to do this. Actually, I kinda lied. You really can't skim through these areas because there is no run button anymore. At first, I didn't mind this feature being omitted. Earthbound's direction and design philosophy is all centered around the player soaking in every sight the game has to offer. To truly embrace its wacky nature and unorthodox culture, it encourages you to talk to every NPC you come across. Let me tell you, Mother 1 did not encourage this. For the first half of the game, maybe, but when you got to Snowman, any person you talk to will give you a cold for sneezing on you. Forget the fact that this is incredibly gross and would probably result in a deathmatch IRL, but this one small, debatably creative interaction totally swayed me away from talking to anyone who wasn't a relevant story figure. Hey, 2 meters please! Coupled with a run button, Mother 1 is a game that, once you come to terms with its gameplay and mechanics, you can blast through any area you want in mere minutes. Unsurprisingly, this is not the case in Earthbound. Ness and the gang walk so freaking slow, it's actually unbearable at times. I really did try my best to meet the game and follow it at its own pace, and I don't regret it in some instances. There are many dialogue boxes and characters that still stand out in my mind for saying something incredibly helpful or absolutely hilarious. But with the game toning down its movement speed, this brings about 3 unexcusable downsides. Number 1, avoiding enemies is too difficult. You know, that last statement could probably be considered clickbait, because enemies are not just difficult to bypass, no, they are straight up impossible to avoid. Remember in the last video where I discussed the breakaway Mother 1 suffered from its 2 gameplay styles? The fact that when you're traveling the luscious land of America, you would quite frequently be interrupted by a random group of enemies. Well, Earthbound sees this as an opportunity for improvement, as no longer are encounters subject to RNG. Enemies that you battle now appear as sprites in the overworld, ranging from animals to cars to stop signs to smurfs and diamonds? While this should hands down be a welcome change in my book, paired with the team's new handling of this game, it doesn't quite work out. Ness is slower than, I want to guess, maybe 95% of enemies in the game. Never have I ever been able to run blindly past one, because they would always catch up on me. There's also a new mechanic brought in with these overworld sprites: back attacks. If you make contact with the enemy while they're facing away from you, the screen will scroll screen. What? The green will squirrel green? Was that what I just said? A green swirl will appear and you'll be rewarded the first turn. A nice little bonus, if you could ever bloody pull it off. Since enemies can run laps around you, there's rarely ever a chance you'll be able to benefit from this feature. However, it's a 2-way system, so if you are running away from an enemy and they crawl up on you from behind, well, kiss your health bar goodbye, because they're going to obliterate you before you even get a chance to bash or mash. Number 2, traversing the overworld is way too slow. Fair enough, when you reach a new location and want to explore every single nook and cranny the world has to offer. These are the moments when Earthbound actually shines through its slower design choice. But what about when you're just simply trying to get from point A to point B? What about when you've gathered all the relevant items and party members and you know exactly where you're heading? Well, what you are subject to, my super lucky friend, is a painfully gentle and unrushed group walk of Ness and his friends merely bobbing side to side for sometimes 5 minutes just to make it to the next area. Why? You know what I just love? When you're walking along, minding your own business, but out of the sky comes the greatest superhero of all, Spinny Top Hat Man, exuding his incredible superpower, photography. Yeah, sure, the first couple of times, this was a pretty funny gag, but when it happens again, and again, and again, and again, see, the joke's not funny now, is it? Or what about when it just happens and literally 1 minute later in the next goddamn building you walk into? Like, seriously? You're kidding. You really have to place the cutscene trigger right here. And again, and again. Okay, turn that off. And again. Number 3, progression is a nightmare. Unlike its predecessor, Earthbound is nowhere near as cryptic in terms of beating the game blindly. There were a few points where I was like, yes, I knew this was the way to go. But there was also still a mix of, what the hell am I even doing? This led me to split these moments into 2, natural progression and lucky progression. The natural route is when the answer isn't spelled out for the player, but it's also highly likely they'll meet the story requirements on their own. Becoming a patron for Apple and Orange Kid, entering the Forsyth department store, obtaining the hieroglyph in Summers. These are all things the player will naturally uncover throughout their adventure. My favorite use of this was when I made it to Threed and headed straight to the graveyard. To my surprise, there was nothing I could do here yet. There were 2 zombies giving me the look up north.
Do you know that guy? Yeah, he's from Smash Bros.
But aside from that, nothing. For the first time in my adventure, I was stumped. I was wandering around the city trying to figure out how the heck I was meant to move on and... Weird. I don't remember seeing that suggestive sprite the first time through. It's like she's running away? Nah, it can't be. Okay, I gotta check this out now. Ah! Monster Mash! Do you see what I mean? There were no hints, no cues, no dialogue, no nothing. Any first-time player would have naturally been attracted to this wandering woman. Not in that way, you pervs. Unfortunately, for how well Earthbound structures its storyline, there are moments of progression where it's just... Okay, let me set the scene. Paula is just after getting abducted in the Forsyth department store, thanks in part to the psychic mouse. And now Ness and Jeff must make their way to the top to get her back. Easy! She's not here. I hate it when the enemies are smart. After a totally lopsided battle that I won one-handed blindfolded, which was a total cakewalk by the way, this leader Mook gives an indication of where Paula just might be. Okay, you'd think that hint would be enough to keep me clued in, but alas, I have gained the blues. Right now, I'm thinking there's 2 options for me to move forward here. Option number 1, head to the Monotoli building where Pokey is pompously pepped up and ask where the heck the girl is. Now, I have visited here before. All he did was call me a kid, called over his security guards who, at their own pace, guided me politely out the door, telling me not to come back. Great advice that I definitely took into account. Bottom line is, if I take the elevator back up here and witness this incident again, I'm looking at about a 3-minute time loss. On the other hand, we have the Runaway Five, a music group so in debt, it's not even funny. They mentioned earlier that, chances are, we will need their help to defeat Monotoli. So I'm thinking, maybe now I gotta go back and ask for their help to retrieve our fair lady. But if you thought the Pokey business was time-consuming, get a load of this! You have to purchase $30 tickets to the Five Guys at Fry's concert, head into the venue, watch the entire show, and then talk to each of the 5 members to see if any single one of them has an idea of what to do next. All in all, another 3 minutes wasted. Wow, what a ripoff. So, between these 2 routes, which one did I end up taking? May I remind you that I want to try to get this right the first time around, because coupled with the agonizingly slow travel time in any enemy I may encounter, this whole story moment could take me upwards of 10 minutes. If I'm correct! The moment of truth? Which one was the right choice? None of them! Silly me, what was I thinking? The answer was obvious. I had to go to the lone cafe up north, talk to the customers who hear a noise outside, find a dim-witted Master Roshi on the ground, get rid of Haiku, then step into the wall of the cafe, which, by the way, is totally a bar from the Japanese version. It wasn't censored very well at all, only to enter an alternate dimension where yes means no and no means vice versa. How long did this take for me to find? 20 minutes. Imagine just sitting in a room devoid of sound and sight for 20 minutes. That is how much progress I had made. To give it some credit, Moonside is awesome. It's an unmistakably twisted land that solidifies the unique identity associated with this game and its theming. I just love this. I love the abnormality of the journey. Earthbound is not afraid to just go against the norm at any possible moment. When an underground tunnel system is discovered in the desert, the current party has to fight 5 mini-mole bosses that all claim to be the 3rd strongest in the group. While all their exchanges are witty, the EXP they shell out is enormous for this point in the game. But Earthbound is okay with that. It doesn't care about arbitrarily leveling up the gang like this for the sake of creating an enjoyable dungeon. And listen, it worked for me, okay? If I wasn't leveling up every 2 minutes in this section, I would have gone insane trying to find the exit of this obtuse maze. But that's the beauty of Earthbound. This isn't a standalone moment. There are plenty like these to be found. There's a Kraken Boss fought in the later half of the game, and fair enough, he's quite tough to beat. But once you traverse Ness's dreamland to delve into the darker side of his mind, you find 3 of these beasts in a swampy area. Ness is on his own here, and you know what? Even though it's a carbon copy boasting the exact same stats, our pro-tag can defeat them with ease at this point. And again, the EXP is ludicrous! That in and of itself would have been perfect game design. But when you finally overcome that devilish manifestation at the summit of Ness's dreams, this happens. This is awesome! See, it's small unconventional moments like this that I really love about Earthbound. It's not afraid to give Ness this massive stat buff, all to tie in with a critical story point. PP nearly trebled, for God's sake. This endgame is getting absolutely crushed.
At this point, you guys just might be the strongest force in the world, don't you think?
Yeah, well, this trio gives us a run for our money. I seriously hate to pull so many bait and switches, but this freaking game, it gets me good every time. Its climactic moments are executed marvelously. Its difficulty is consistently challenging. The music is never short of a bop. The graphics, the gameplay, the overworld, the writing, the edits, the characters, the game. And as we reach the end of the game, I think it's important to reflect on the variety of moods portrayed by Earthbound. It truly captures fantastical childhood in its purest form. You venture out into the world with little to no knowledge on what lies ahead, yet your courage carries you on. There are small pockets of happiness to remind you that the world is not actually that bad of a place. Don't be worried about getting swarmed by hostile crows and dogs. You'll be able to fend them off with ease in no time. Don't be scared about remaining alone for the adventure. True friends will be made along the way. And don't be disturbed when the world turns a little dark. You'll follow the light through the other side only to become stronger than ever. The game delivers its theme of happiness numerous times over. Although there are many bumps along the way, I can't help but enjoy the adventure in an oddly optimistic manner. For all its empowering motifs, for all of its triumphant battles, for all of its vigorous positivity, there is Gygas.
Nice. You can aggressively from Gygas' attack.
Are you scared? I am. I'm absolutely terrified right now. What are humans if they don't embrace their true fears, right? I'm stunned. I'm in total paralysis from the shock.
It hurts. It hurts.
This is true power! Existence doesn't matter if we swat away our inner demons. I found it at last. What it means to live.
Fear.
Fear.
Please give us strength, if it is possible. Please, somebody help us.
Paula and her friend's call touched the heart of Git.
Please, grant us strength. Anyone who can hear our plea, we ask for this.
I prayed for the kids, having never even met them before.
I can't think of anyone else. Someone, anyone, please help us.
Paula's call was absorbed by the darkness.
Someone, can you hear me? Please, give us strength.
Glenn kept praying. Glenn kept praying. Glenn kept praying. The war against Gygus is over. As far as final bosses go, yeah, this is a masterpiece. Paulette takes on the protagonistic role here for a second, as she prays for the hope that somebody hears our plea and saves the Chosen Four from falling to darkness. For a time when having female heroines was definitely not all that common, this was a pleasant surprise for me. Being as this game takes after its prequel quite a bit, it's easy to draw similarities between this fight and the previous final boss against Gigu. Essentially, both are just long, drawn-out cutscenes that require you to press one button to win. I criticized Mother 1 for this, as it resulted in an anticlimactic ending. But Gygus is anything but an anticlimax. In concept, the two fights sound the same, but in practice, I mean, oh my god, have you been looking at the screen the past 5 minutes? Gygus displays a spectacle phenomenon full of genuine fear and despair, heavy flashing images and goosebump-inducing soundtrack. Hell, I don't even know if I'd call it a song, it's just a jumble of creepy noises, and that's just so spot on. I still can't believe that a final boss from 25 years ago, in my opinion, still stands as one of the greatest gaming moments of all time. Hands down, there's no room for debate. But this is Earthbound. What else did you expect?
Ness, will you escort me home?
What? No! Come on, that's embarrassing.
Well then, I'll escort you.
Huh. This game really has everything, doesn't it? Earthbound starts off as a slow-moving adventure where the looming threat of Gygus is taken as serious as the enemies you encounter. As the journey went on, I started to amend myself to match its slower-paced style. The post-game sequence allows the player to explore the whole world again, talking to any NPC they want, but with new dialogue. Some comment on the resolution of Ness's final battle, some on their personal lives you might have been following, and other incredibly beautiful moments. Monotoli returns the Foresight skyscraper to the original owner, Enrich Flavor. Ha! The Bubble Monkey's wife confesses that while saving the world is important, her husband ought to know the importance of marriage comes first. Yikes! And that final moment of returning Paula home. Outstanding. If I wasn't so invested in the world, I would have just teleported straight home and watched the credits. But because of its humor, its characters, its moments, you know what? I can see why this game has such a passionate fan base. Even well after finishing it, I can't help but read more into the lore, the inspirations, the fan art. Seriously, the freaking fan art! This one in particular, depicting the final fight against Gygus, it perfectly conveys the disasterful nightmare the gang have to defeat, with Paula clutching on to nothing but hope. Oh, I love it! Mother 2 is not a perfect game, not by a long shot, but the fact that after one playthrough, it was able to make me forgive and forget those negatives goes to show that this video game truly is special. I never would have guessed it, but I think I finally come to a conclusion. After all these years, I am now a fan of Earthbound. Thank you so much for watching. Like, subscribe, go to Discord, that's new, and editor tip, don't let a girl from the countryside ever do a voiceover again.
Please, grant us strength. Anyone who can hear our plea, we ask.